Hello and welcome. Well, getting children to eat their vegetables has been the bane of parents' existence for eons, a dilemma that almost all parents face at one point or another. It's common, of course, amongst your frustration that you worry if your child is getting enough nutrients from the foods they're eating to help support their growth and development. One way to overcome this, of course, is the age old trick of sneaking in the vegetables into the foods that they already love. Now, even if this is something that you're already doing, there's no harm in acquiring some new and creative tips. So, to help share some inspiration, we welcome back Siobhan Boyle, CEO of Jamie Oliver's Ministry of Food, who Kiddipedia is so honoured to be in partnership with. Today, Siobhan is going to share her expert tips, how you can include veggies in your kids' favourite recipes. Thank you so much for joining us and welcome back. How are you?
I'm really good, thank you. Lovely to see you again, and thank you very much for having us back on to have a chat about this very important topic, because it is a conversation that I know parents are having probably daily across the country about how do we get our kids to eat more vegetables.
Veggies.
Uh,
Well, let's just face it. At the end of the day, all we just want is for kids to eat their veggies. So, but what we want, of course, and what it is sort of our reality. It's vastly two different things, and the struggle is real. So, with this, I have to ask just initially, why do you think this is actually is and has always been the case? What are your
I
thoughts?
think, well, I don't know whether you remember being a child, but it's one of those things that vegetables have a funny perception when you're children, and a lot of kids seem to have barriers to eating them. They don't like them, and especially when they're at school, they're like, no, I don't like this because the other kids don't like it. And so, you've got that little bit of negative peer pressure and the negative connotations associated with veggies. And actually, you know what, it's one of those things that we've learned through delivering our programs, that if you can get kids really excited about fruit and vegetables from a young age, they're much more likely to try new ingredients and be acceptable to trying different recipes and different ingredients. So I know that it is that age-old problem that children seem to put barriers up and they don't like veg. But there are two methods of attack here. One is hiding those vegetables in your kids' favorite recipes. So by coarsely grating zucchinis and onions and carrots into a sauce, they're cunningly disguised in a tomato sauce, which will go with your favorite pasta and meatball recipe, or can be spread onto a beautiful pizza, and that's a great way of kind of hiding the veggies. But another way that we find works brilliantly is also getting those kids really excited about that particular fruit or vegetable and taking them on that journey about a particular fruit or vegetable, and then they kind of go, oh, actually I didn't know those fun facts, and they try it and they might think it's okay, but then they might try it again and they actually go, oh, actually that's really delicious. And sometimes it's that whole perception of going, well, I don't like a tomato, but when I put a tomato with some basil, or I put a tomato with some cheese, it becomes really yummy. And so it is bringing them on that journey with you. My fondest memories were in the kitchen. I remember learning to cook from a really young age, so I was really lucky. So I had that influence from a young age where I had these positive eating habits instilled, but not everyone is lucky enough to be able to do that because they're time poor, and also not everyone has access to the wide variety of fresh ingredients. So we part of what we want to do is inspire parents to not only sort of work with their kids and get them inspired in the kitchen, but also we know that there are always going to be times when it is really hard, and sneaking those veggies in and making them part of a meal. And like another great example is putting cauliflower into a mac and cheese sauce. So something which kids all love mac and cheese, don't they? I don't know any
They're not going to
child
see it.
but if you mash up your cauliflower and put it into the sauce, it suddenly is something super, super delicious. But you're making something which can be considered a little bit naughty sometimes, something which is packed full of veggies. So it's those clever little tricks which are always handy to have up your sleeve. And then, but I think, if you can get your kids involved in the process too, it suddenly changes that perception. Even if they see you mashing that cauliflower and then they get to try it, they're like, oh, actually, that's not so bad. So,
Yes.
this is something that, we try and encourage. And, we want every single person in Australia to be cooking from scratch. We've had kids as young as 3 doing our Learn Your Fruit and Veg program. So we know we can get them in there, cutting and chopping and mixing and having a good time and getting their hands in. And, kids of all ages, even the grown-up kids, can still learn some new tricks.
Talking about fun facts, I just wanted to share this, slightly off topic, but it's sort of, I just wanted to bring this up just to see what your thoughts were. You know how I was asking before about, why is it that kids have always sort of not liked vegetables? I read a quote yesterday, and I'll share the link in the show notes. I just found it fascinating. So quoting what they say in this study, that our ancestors lived with lots of toxic plants, and as we evolved, a gene that makes, I guess, the toxic plants taste bitter, actually to discourage us from eating them and actually making us sick. So children probably evolved a stronger aversion to bitter taste because they haven't yet learned what plants, I guess, were dangerous. This obviously is part of our evolution. So we learned what plants were safe, and I know that we lose half of our taste receptors by the age that we're 20, which actually makes vegetables taste a little bitter. So from my understanding, it's actually part of evolution as to how and why vegetables tasted bitter. It was to protect us. And as I was just mentioning, that our taste receptors change and our palate changes. So do you find that partly because that's the reason why a lot of children don't like the taste of vegetables, because of the bitterness in them, or not? I don't know.
Um, yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think some vegetables can have that very bitter flavor, and also like when you're eating vegetables out of season, they can sometimes not
Yeah,
taste as flavorsome as they should. And that's the
very
same
true.
with any fruit or vegetable. If you're eating things when you shouldn't be eating them, they can taste a bit bland and boring, or they can taste a little bit bitter. With tomatoes, actually, you say about sort of things being poisonous. They used to be, because of the color of tomatoes, they used to think that they were poisonous berries, because when when they first got discovered, they were like, oh, well, these look like they're poisonous.
No way.
And actually, now, obviously they're the most popular, fruit or vegetable, whichever way you look at them in the world. But if you eat them out of season, I mean, they taste watery and they taste disgusting.
Very true.
And you're like, what is the point? And so I totally get that. If you're eating things and they don't taste flavorsome, even a carrot out of season doesn't have that beautiful sweetness and that deliciousness that you associate with eating carrots. So
Very true.
it's really important not only to, be just putting any old vegetables on your children's plate or sneaking any old vegetables. If you can try and eat seasonally, which is something we teach across our 2 programs, that's a great way of getting them to eat the best in season, get the best flavor, but also for the parents, you're getting the best price point for those fruit and vegetables too. So it's a win-win, flavor and cost, which are 2 things which are going to sort of help you on that journey with your family.
And so, in your opinion, so do you think it's important for parents to persist in trying to give their children, whole fruits and vegetables, with a view of trying to make them just familiar with new foods and just, I guess, strengthening their palate?
Yeah, I think there's always, with all of us, there are things that we're going to like and there are going to things that we don't like, and that's because as humans we're all different. But I think it's really important, and I know it's really important to show your children a range of different ingredients and a rainbow of different fruits and vegetables, because sometimes you try something and you don't like it, and then you try it in a different way and you actually like it a little, and then you like it some more. So it just it is not sort of ruling things out, and then making sure that you are introducing them to a rainbow of fruit and vegetables, because we know that the different colors of fruits and vegetables mean that you're getting a wider variety of nutrients into your children. And you will find those fruits and vegetables that they do like as well, and making sure that on the plate we always teach a balanced plate when we're teaching about fruits and vegetables and about cooking. And, it's showing kind of how the plate should look. And you can do, when they're really little, you can do lots of fun things, can't you, with the plates? And depending on how much time you have as well. I am in mind that parents are very time poor nowadays, but there's lots of fun ways of encouraging eating of fruit and vegetables. But even if it's when they're really little, having those bite-sized pieces, that makes it very approachable for them. And with the finger food, then they have total control over what they're eating.
Mm.
And sort of not putting too much on their plate too, because that can be quite confronting. So it's kind of going, okay, you didn't like that last time, well, let's try something new. And okay, let's find things that we do like, as well as sneaking in a few into those hidden vegetable dishes. And you can even sneak in some zucchini into a burger mixture. So it's kind of it's those clever little things. And carrots great in a burger mixture too. Making your homemade burgers, which most children do like, and getting that coarsely grated vegetable in there. It's just another way of kind of lifting the vegetable content, without it becoming a really arduous process at meal
Yes.
times, because we're all busy, and meal
Sure.
times can be notoriously hard. And you don't want people to have negative connotations with food, because it should be such a joy and such a pleasure to eat, and you want that perception and that positivity to sort of be included in your family meal times.
Yes. Through COVID, I guess when health has really been, it's been at the forefront of our minds. There's never been, I think, a better opportunity for parents to instill in their children how important vegetables actually are, and how pretty much food can be used as medicine almost. Do you think that especially it's like valuable to expose children to this wisdom now during this time in particular? What are your
Oh,
thoughts?
100%. I mean, it's almost like you want to explain why things are good for them, so that they know that
Yeah.
they're going to give them superpowers. So if you know that the bananas contain potassium, and that is going to help you, and lots of energy. So it's going to make you run faster. You're going to go, oh my goodness, this is great. I'm going to be a super runner by eating this. And then that a capsicum is packed full of vitamin C, and this is going to help you fight colds and illness. And you're like, oh, this is amazing. So it's almost, if you can you give those ingredients their superpowers, then they're like, oh, well, I become like a superhero if I eat those different ingredients. So it
Yeah.
is really important. And every parent and every child, they want to learn the best, and they want to run the best, and they want to know what things are
Yes.
going to sort of enhance them in the best possible way. So I think if you're putting that positivity on those ingredients, and they're like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to be super calm if I eat celery, or I'm going to be I'm going to
Yes.
be able to fight off this. And it's pretty cool when you think about it like that, isn't it?
Well, I think it's just about the age appropriate information, communicating how you can sort of get through to them, and, as to why eating the vegetables is so crucial to their short and their long term health as well. So I think, as you said, superheroes and those types of things, so it's a really powerful messages for the little ones. And just mentioning before too, I was just saying how the palate changes. Do you think that children's palates can and do change over time? And for that reason, then that it's actually important for them to have exposure to as many different foods as early as possible? Because I just wanted to expand on that just a little bit. You did mention it earlier.
Yeah, and I think that's you've got to sort of try that sort of range of foods.
Yeah.
And I think it's you're ingraining those really positive habits from a young age. The more exposure to different flavors and different ingredients they have, the more likely they are to transition those positive habits into adulthood. So
Mm.
it's really it's really important to do that. And I think it's something crazy, like there's sort of 21 times of trying something to really kind of,
That many? 21?
yes,
Wow, I didn't
to
think it
be
was that many.
sure. Yes. And so, it's, I mean, obviously, if you're getting a really negative reaction, you probably might want to stop. But
Thrown at the
it's,
wall.
yes,
Don't
but
like that,
I'm
I
not saying,
told you.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes it does help when you've got sort of I mentioned earlier about I suppose the negative peer pressure that you sometimes get about vegetables are yucky and everyone going, oh no, I don't like them. Whereas, what we have found is we also have that positive peer pressure when we do go in to preschools and primary schools, and we take in, it's one of the cards that surprised me actually is a broccoli card. And we took in some broccoli to kids, and I was like, oh, I don't know whether this one's going to go down well. Our kids going to like broccoli. I mean, it's a bit of a divider. It seems to be one that some kids love, some kids hate. And we did a big sort of hands up at the beginning of the class, and who loves this? And it was a bit of a mixed bag. And I was just amazed by sort of how, because they were helping sort of to chop the broccoli, and then they made a dressing, and then they got to scrunch ingredients. They all tried it, and at the end of the class, they were all like, actually, that was really yummy. And so even the haters became lovers of broccoli at the end of the class. And that was the same with beetroot too. And you're just kind of like, it kind of blows your mind how receptive children can be to trying new things, especially when they have that positive environment to try things in. And
Absolutely.
also, when you've got positive peer pressure too. So it can be a total win at school to get those positive habits instilled. Also, if you get a tricky one in the class, you're like, I hate this, it makes it really difficult too. So you've got to I suppose pick your audience, but I think it's as many exposures as you can possibly get to instill those positive food habits. And it's not just getting them to try ingredients for the nutritional benefits. We also know that it also sort of helps with learning, and it also helps with their mental health outcomes as well,
completely.
which translates into later life. So there's so many reasons why this is so important, because
Totally agree with you.
if you get them right at eating the right food before the age of 14, they are much less likely to suffer from negative mental health outcomes. So diet and positive eating habits, it's so important that they get ingrained. And even if it is in these delicious recipes that there are links to on the blog, which I say the mac and cheese with cauliflower is particularly good. And I'm not going to lie, especially now it's a bit colder. I'm 100% pushing for that one, and that's an adult favorite too.
Love it. Well, I just wanted to acknowledge we published your article titled Including Veggies in Your Kids' Favorite Recipes now. For someone who hasn't read the article yet, could you please tell us what it's about and what inspired you to write it?
Yeah, absolutely. As we touched on at the beginning of our chat today, it is one of those subjects that is, I think it plays in everyday life for parents. And I think it needs to have that positive spin rather than it being a negative that children aren't eating veggies. It's that positivity that, we're trying to create of including veggies in their diet and including them in their favorite food. So it becomes the norm, it becomes exciting, and it becomes acceptable, and they realize that they are delicious. So it's just, it's recognizing the barriers that there are to eating vegetables currently, and also the problems, but also just giving you some great recipe ideas that you can link into and hopefully try out at home, so that you can kind of include those in your repertoire, and they can become family favorites, and that you are including that sort of rainbow of vegetables in your children's diet with this selection of recipes too.
Yes. Well, help us out here. Now, what are some of the easiest kid-friendly dishes to sneak some veggies into? Tell us, what's your inspiration? Help some parents out.
Help some parents out. Well, I mean, I think so the classic tomato sauce recipe, which if you can then grate in your carrots and your zucchini, and you can finely chop some mushrooms. You don't need to grate if you've got a food processor. This is a great tool too, so you can blitz up all your veggies and you put them into your classic tomato sauce or a hidden veggie tomato sauce.
Or meatballs. That's what my parents used to do for me, apparently.
100%. Well, you put this in, and then that's the base for your meatballs, or that's the base for your lasagna, or that's the base for your pizza sauce. So it's a great one. It's almost like your mothership recipe that you can take off in multiple directions, and you just know that that's going to be a really good recipe base to then, sort of spice up or sort of add some herbs to, or, add some mince to, or add some meatballs to. And, you've got something which, you've got batch cooked in your freezer, so which is good to go. Also, as I keep mentioning, the cauliflower mac and cheese, which is a go-to, but are using like pizza recipes as well are fabulous. And if you get kids helping create their own pizzas and their own meals, you put a sort of range of veggies out. This is what we do actually in our classes. The pizza class we teach, it's all we include all vegetables to put on the toppings. And you'll be surprised by how much, how many people we get sort of saying, oh, where's the meat? And then they make their pizzas, and we've got beautiful spinach and red onions and capsicums and mushrooms, and people actually at the end of the class are like, oh, that was totally delicious. We don't feel like we've missed out. And so you can replicate the same at home, making pizzas, and you give them a selection of veggies and you get them to choose the vegetables. So they're having a bit of fun. They can create pizza faces, or they can be bring out their inner Italian or their inner Jamie, which is always a good thing because everyone loves a bit of Jamie. And then they can create these beautiful dishes, which are vegetable packed and they've had total control over.
So, yeah, and you can never start too young with getting kids involved in the kitchen. As you mentioned earlier, you've had children as early as 3, did you say, early choosing and helping prepare meals and understanding, I guess, and understanding food is a basis for healthy eating choices. This is something that you're mentioning before, which I think is so powerful. I mean, so do you think overall then that getting children exploring and understanding that food is the basis for eating healthy choices is something that we should be doing from an early age then?
100%. And, sort of, I think what we need to do as a country is realize the importance of food education. The onus isn't just on the parents. It needs to be, this needs to be embraced in schools. It needs to be embraced across curriculums. It needs to be becoming the social norm again, that, food education is a priority, because if you can't feed yourself and you can't feed your kids, then, how are you supposed to function? And it's really sort of been taken away. Which is why we exist as an organization, because there's a big missing skill gap of people who don't know how to cook from scratch. Everyone knows what they should be doing, because there's information everywhere. As we know, food is everywhere, and there's food magazines, TV shows. We should start in MasterChef again, and so it's kind of it's in your face. It's every day. But if you don't have those skills and that knowledge to make those choices, but also make the food really delicious, then you're fighting a losing battle. So, getting food education back on the menu, making it a priority, and, so equipping the nation with those skills again, so that, we eventually, everyone has the ability and the knowledge and the skills to make those choices and empower their families and get everyone in Australia cooking from scratch.
Love it. Yeah, and helping with food prep can also help from my understanding, so help children understand the texture of the food by touching it and feeling it. Just getting familiar with this, I guess, is the first step to introducing a new food to children. Would you say is once they actually understand that how a zucchini feels and a carrot and all those types of things? I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, 100%. It's getting them exposed to the ingredients so they know what a zucchini looks like. They know where it comes from, but they also get to sort of smell it, taste it in its raw state. They're like, okay, and maybe I don't like it in this raw state. This is, it's going into a sauce, and this is what it tastes like when it's cooked. And it's, getting that exposure so that they become sort of so used to using these ingredients and working with these ingredients, but also it just becomes very acceptable that, of course I'm going to have zucchini in my pasta tonight. That's quite normal, and it is totally delicious. So yeah, the younger you can get kids in the kitchen helping with food prep, getting them inspired, taking them on the journey with you, and I think you're going to set them up with amazing skills for life. You're going to equip them with basic nutrition knowledge, and you'll do that as a byproduct of exposing them to these amazing range of ingredients, and you know that they're going to make those better choices, and you're sending them off to school. That means their lunch boxes will be better because they're more acceptable to fruits and vegetables. They're going to concentrate better at school, and they're going to get better outcomes. But equally, it's okay not to always be perfect. And that's another thing. It's like, I think there's so much pressure on parents now to have the perfect lunchbox, have the perfect diet, and we're all humans, and
Yes.
it's okay sometimes to not do the perfect thing. But I think it's that sort of 80-20 rule of, if you're instilling those
Completely.
positive habits, and you educate kids about what's in food as well. So not just, we've been talking today mainly about getting them eating fresh fruit and vegetables, but the other end of the spectrum is, that the majority of food in supermarkets is processed or packaged. And it's getting them to understand what is in those packaged ingredients. And not everything is bad that's packaged, but it's just getting, your older kids to understand, when they're reading a label, why this might be good for you or why it might not be good for you, and sort of comparing that to something that's homemade or like a fresh ingredient, so that they can kind of start to make those educated choices for themselves. So it's a total journey that you take your children on when you're teaching them about food, and educating them about cooking. And it starts off with getting them sort of used to those different ingredients and excited about different ingredients. But equally, then you want to sort of educate them about the foods that are out there every day and making those smart choices, but also recognizing when something's a sometimes food, and then recognizing when something's an everyday good to go food and you've got the green light to go, and why it's a good food for you to go, and what the positive outcomes will be from you eating those foods and ingredients.
And to continue on from that, when we eat healthy food, naturally our body feels better. If I've had a big bowl of spinach soup, my partner and I, we look at one another and we're like, oh, we can just feel that our body is going, thank you for all of this good stuff. So do you think it's equally important to educate children to be aware of just how their bodies feel after eating healthy food, as opposed to when they're eating things that are potentially full of preservatives and that sometimes food is, as you just referenced?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's just about sort of the language you use around that, because the when you are sort of educating about kids about sort of different foods, it can be you don't want to sort of make them feel like they're doing the wrong thing by eating certain things. It's but we know that, I don't know about you, but I know that if I eat something sweet, I can feel like a sudden spike in heat in your body, and it makes you feel quite odd if I eat something like really sugary. And it is important to explain kind of the sort of the highs and the lows that you get through eating sort of not nutrient dense food, but equally it's kind of recognizing that it's okay to eat them sometimes. So
Yes.
it's that fine balance between not going, you can't eat this ever, and then kind of
But
go,
it
this
gives
is
them the
why.
opportunity to have a choice of saying, well, I don't like the way my body feels after eating that. I think and I know that if I eat an apple as opposed to a bag of chips, I feel better afterwards, or what have you. So give them the choice of actually internalizing and going, I actually like how my body feels after eating something healthy. And this is just, I mean, do you find this is part of the education as well of what you guys do?
Yeah, and we are all about sort of cooking from scratch, eating from the 5 main food groups in everything we do. And so it is about how it makes your body feel, and how you have total control then over what you're putting into your body, which is empowering for kids young and old,
Yeah,
and adults too. And so if you've got that knowledge and that education base, you can make those positive choices. But it is ultimately, it's kind of making them feel like it's their choice too, and
absolutely.
not taking and yeah, totally agree. It's just sort of, it is also kind of giving them that balance as well, because
Of
kids are
course.
kids, and we're not going to go away from um the world that we're in at the moment. But if you can get them sort of reaching for the apples and the carrots and the cucumbers more of the time, and they understand why that's a good choice, and they can see the positive benefits of that, 100% you're going to get more kids reaching for the apples and the celery, etc., than you are getting for the going for the sugary snacks. And and if they think they're going to run faster and actually they're not going to be hungry until lunchtime, they'll be like, oh, this is good, because a lot of those snacks, you find that you have them, you feel good when you eat them, and then like about 10 minutes later you're hungry again, aren't you? And so that's another thing, especially as kids get older and they get more active, and especially with lots of sports, it's just making sure that you are giving them enough to sustain them. And we know that sort of eating whole grains and eating lots of fruit and vegetables is a great way of providing a good level of fiber in their diet, which helps helps to fill people up, but also has all the other positive benefits too.
Of course. And when we're happy, of course, we eat more as well. So making food fun, no doubt, is a really easy way to help get kids eating more vegetables and all of the good stuff. And as you mentioned earlier, some of the ways you can get kids to have fun in the kitchen and to love their vegetables is doing things like, of course, grating them into just a spag bowl or sausage rolls, or even to make their own fresh juices and whole fruits and those types of things as well is a really great way to get all their important nutrients. I love the fact that you mentioned about putting their own toppings onto the pizza, but into the pizza base, if you can, maybe even instead of hiding some of these other vegetables. There's so many creative ways of actually sort of getting the vegetables into their little bodies. Just the last question I sort of had for you is, what veggies do you think that we should always have in the fridge?
Now it's sort of based on my answer from earlier. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule on what you should always have in the fridge, because you need to be eating seasonally. So I would say you should always have your staples, like if you've always got onions and you've got your garlic and you've got carrots, they're and celery, they're always good to have as your base level. But then make sure that everything else you are eating seasonally. There are certain root vegetables that taste a lot better in winter, and then you've got your beautiful like tomatoes and cucumbers and zucchini, which taste so much better in spring and summer. And then we've just come out of autumn, where mushrooms are fabulous, and sort of having like a selection of mushrooms during autumn, but making sure that you kind of mix up those ingredients and eating seasonally and buying what's good, and getting to know your greengrocer. If you've got a good greengrocer in your area, their knowledge is fabulous, and they will be able to talk you through what's really good and where it's come from. They'll be able to take you on that sort of journey and go, actually, yeah, you should definitely be eating this right now, because it's in season, it's fresh, and that when you smell ingredients when they're in season, they smell like they should smell. I know that sounds silly, but they really do, don't they? So you just need to have your fridge packed full of seasonally good ingredients. Make sure you have your staples on standby, because I can't forget the potato. I'm English. How did I forget the potato? But yeah, and then like in autumn as well, you've got pumpkin as well, so that's beautiful. And autumn and winter, you think of all those beautiful decadent pumpkin recipes, roasting pumpkin. You can have pumpkin mash, the pumpkin soups. There's so many ways you can do pumpkin. We've got a great 3 ways with pumpkin recipe, where you make fritters, you make a pasta, and you make a beautiful hummus. So there's multiple things you can do with vegetables. Possibilities are endless, but eating seasonally is so important. It's going to taste better, going to cost less, and hopefully will inspire your kids and your family to eat more of them, which is what we want.
Absolutely. Well, I've loved our chat today. If you were to summarize any key messages for parents to take away from our chat today, what would they be?
Getting kids eating plenty of vegetables is obviously a challenge. However, getting them involved in the kitchen and getting them part of the cooking process is one of the key ways to inspire them to eat more vegetables. Get them involved in the process, as I just said. And if you're struggling, we've got some great tips on how to hide those veggies in the family favorite recipes. which is, always good to have some of those hints and tips up your sleeve. But what I would say, one of the most important things is to eat seasonally. Eat the rainbow, eat what's good, eat what it's going to be more nutritionally better for you. Nutritionally, it's going to taste better and it's going to cost less. So eat that rainbow, get the kids in the kitchen and, use some of our handy hints and tips on recipes for hiding those veggies too. And they will become your family favorites.
And whereabouts can they find you guys if they want some more information?
If you go onto our website, which is www.thegoodfoundation.com.au, you'll be able to find out about our programs. So it's got details about our Jamie's Ministry of Food program and our Jamie Oliver's Learn Your Fruit and Veg program. We would love to hear from you. There's an expressions of interest page. If you'd like to learn more about our programs, we deliver a lot virtually now as well. So we can come to your community with this wonderful Zoom functionality and zoom into your classrooms or your community centre. We also have face-to-face deliveries up in Queensland, and we have the ability to come to your school or your community in other areas of the country too. So we look forward to hearing from you, and we want to transform Australian communities by inspiring them and empowering them with these back to basics cooking skills.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, Siobhan. We'll have all of those links in the show notes. Look forward to chatting again soon. But until then, take care and stay safe.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, bye.
Bye.